In today's video, I'm going to teach you how you can actually use the Locrian mode. Now, before we get into it, I must warn you that this is the hardest mode to use. It is very difficult to make this sound coherent, as we will see later. However, with high risk comes high reward. This is a very good way to make your music more original. This is a great way for you to stand out. So let's briefly have a look at the construction. There are two ways, as always. You can either start your major scale from a note below. So, for example, in C major, you start in B and play the same notes as you would play in C major. That way you get B Locrian. Or you can do something which is much more coherent, which is you just start with a minor scale, and then you play the flat second and the flat fifth. Let's play, for example, G Locrian. We play G minor. We have those notes. Now we're going to play the same idea, but we're gonna play the flat second. So instead of playing A, we play A flat. And then we play the flat fifth. So instead of playing D, we play D flat. And there you have it, G Locrian. So yes, constructing the Locrian mode is easy, I know. But using it, that's a whole different story. And that's why I'm going to start with my very first tip, which is extraordinarily important. Let go of the need for resolution. The Locrian mode is not a classical mode. It is not major. You do not have a perfect cadence. If you want to play with the Locrian mode, you have to accept that you're playing a completely different game. It is not the game of tension and resolution in the same way as with other modes. Why is this the case? Because tension and resolution resides on the fact that you have a dominant and a tonic. But we don't have the dominant here. We have the diminished fifth. It's easy to say just let go of the need for resolution, but that isn't really that practical. It is a good mindset, and you must always have that mindset. But it's also good to have some practical tips, some ways that you can actually play this in an improvisation. Well, first of all, it is a source of uniqueness. It's to break with what is common. You can use it in the middle of a song to break the expectations of the listener and to add some variation. In this way, you can stop your improvisations from being too boring. So in relation to this, a good idea is to use it in sections. Otherwise, it can get very boring very quickly. This tends to happen. Interesting sounds, they're great. They add special spice to your improvisations, but they just get boring. From the listener's perspective, you don't really want to have dissonance for too long. Otherwise, you get used to the dissonance and you lose the effect of uniqueness that dissonance used to provide. So I'll give you an example. You have composers like Debussy who use this mode in the middle of their compositions. In sections, they don't use it for the entire composition, they use it to develop their melodies in a very special way. Once again, breaking apart with what is common, breaking apart with that tension and release scheme, which is the most common in music. As I just said, it's very good for development, not for making memorable melodies. Why? Because usually if you want a memorable melody, you need that fifth, which you do not have in the Locrian mode. You can make interesting melodies, don't get me wrong, but you won't really be able to make memorable melodies. You can base your improvisation on another mode and then play in the Locrian mode to add some interesting ideas, to add some development. Once you have already introduced that more memorable melody. Another practical tip is that you can use the Locrian mode to create an atmosphere of anguish. Now you have to do this with other tips, such as, for example, playing an accelerando or playing from the deeper part of the piano to the higher notes. This way you can create a very interesting atmosphere. And of course, experiment. This is a tip that I always give. Your improvisations have to be yours, not mine or anyone else's. So it's a great idea to start to add your own touch to your music. Now I do have a bonus tip, which is a variation of the scale that you can use, which is to play the normal second, the natural second, not the flat second. So for example, in B Locrian, you would usually have, but you can play the normal second, which would be C sharp here. And this is a great scale that you can use in any of your diminished chords. Now I will give you another example on how you can use the Locrian mode to create an interesting ambience. So as you can see, that did sound good, but you wouldn't really want to play that for too long, otherwise it can get boring. So it's great to add these special sources of uniqueness, but you must be careful. It's like seasoning food. You don't really want to go over the top. So I have said in various occasions that the Locrian mode is the least classical of the modes, and this is for a specific reason, actually. This is a fun fact I wanted to end this video on this interesting note. Throughout the Middle Ages, this interval, the tritone, which is the interval that you will find between the fifth and the root of the Locrian mode, was considered to be unholy. It was the interval of the devil. I know that sounds exaggerated, but I'm not making this up. It was called Diabolus in Musica, which means the devil in music. And well, given that most music throughout the Middle Ages was more religious based, it makes sense that people didn't use this mode much. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. It is very, very useful. See you next time.